Well, hello and welcome to Concentric Circles, the show about 21st century creativity. My name is Jim Tremontana, and today I am joined by the fabulous Vinny Fiorello, Obi Fernandez, and John O'Deener. How are you boys?
Yes.
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 Under the weather there, Obi. What's going on?
That's all I can say is yes. You know, I'm rocking a head cold. It's not the Rona, just a head cold.
Good.
I got a little freaked out for a second. I lost my sense of smell and taste for like a second, but really just needed to have a gnarly sneeze, and it all came back.
Nice.
So just happy to report that I'm safe. I'm here, doing it. You know.
I'm glad you're safe.
Yeah, man. I wish I was a little busier. I wish I had more going on in my life right now. But yeah, besides that, guys, this is perfect. I'm happy to be back with y'all, you handsome gentlemen.
Yeah. I don't know.
A bit.
Jono, what's up with you?
So many things. Our band No Trigger just recorded 20 songs at my brother's house. I did 18 songs on drums in 2 days. And then while I was doing that, I started writing press releases for a new company, and I'm working on a coffee company that's launching soon, plus the inevitable. So when Obi jumped on, I was like, man, you seem exhausted. And you're like, head cold. I'm like, oh, I just look like that, and I don't have a head cold.
I get it. No excuse.
Hey, what have you been up to, man?
You know what? Let's see. Inevitable stuff, obviously. Like, that's part of, like, the thing. After the Fall record digitally came out for Paper and Plastic, which is a ripper of a record. You know, it's like fast melodic punk rock, you know, similar to No Trigger, you know, well, if we're going to hype things around a little bit and say stuff, right? But I went to St. Augustine with the family, went there, had a good time. We stayed at a very safe Airbnb, and the day after we got there, I threw my back out. So now I'm like kind of hobbling around like that. And that's where I'm at. You know, I have a stack of work, and it's all little stuff. You know, I have like texts from guys calling me, you should put the link in your bio of your Twitter. People like to click things. I'm like, dude, I have like 45 things. I guess I'll stop everything and put that into my Twitter. But
Why would Obi text you that?
I know.
What a dick.
But with that said, Inevitables, since we last recorded Inevitables, has been kicking ass. We're $275 away from our $30,000 goal. So, man, that's a lot of support. And I talked to Obi about this. The gratitude that I feel for people supporting, it means everything. And it's a very cool and very righteous thing, because we have all been working on it and we've talked about it, and to see it come to fruition is awesome. So
Yeah.
that's the stuff, man. So here we are.
Yeah. Super special.
Earlier, that I think sky's the limit with this thing, boys. You're going to surpass 30,000 any second now. Keep climbing to the stratosphere.
Hopefully, man.
But I guess that might be a good transition for our guest this afternoon. What do you think?
It is.
So if you want to, please welcome to the show Mr. Jim Logrando. He's the co-founder of Craft Services, a music strategy agency that specializes in crowdfunding music projects like The Inevitables. Prior to launching Craft Services, Jim held senior roles in strategic management and brand development at Redeye Worldwide and Roc Records, as well as being a leading member of the Kickstarter music team and working directly with creators. By night, Jim is a songwriter, band manager, blackjack player, t-shirt collector, and tortured Pittsburgh Pirates fan. Welcome, Jim, to the Inner Circle. Jim, come on in.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me come. I'm really excited about being a part of this. It's great.
Awesome, man.
It's great to have you, man. It's great to have you. So for all of everyone listening and checking out, we've been working with Jim on The Inevitables. Jim was a part of our Kickstarter team and dealing with the ins and outs of making Kickstarter happen. So It's cool. We're gonna make about $400,000 off of this thing. It's gonna be sick. No, I'm just kidding.
Night, and then we'll go from there.
We got 3
And-
weeks left, so the sky is the limit. And
Yeah,
I know from the inside that we got some tricks up our sleeves. So I think people are going to be excited about what we have left to talk about.
Yeah, so we're so stoked to have you on, man. It's gonna be a fun time. Hey, Vinny, why don't you go ahead and tell us what we're gonna be talking about today, my brother?
Well, we're taking the extension of what you guys just were talking about, and we're talking about thinking outside the box when it comes to being an artist, being a creative, being everything under the sun. It's having that moment where you go, this isn't working anymore. Let me try to figure out something that's completely left of center, And to be honest with you, before having the Kickstarter for Inevitables, I was on the fence about it. I went, why would I kind of do this when I could take the money and we could go in the studio, we could record it, we could put it out. And it was the finer points that I started to kind of, as it started to go along, the finer points of marketing and things like that were lost on me, and the slow build. And I'm an impulsive person, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I get an idea, I want to do the idea, and I want to jump into the idea and push it out. But with that said, tonight, though, we're talking about those moments that when you just can't just push it out or go along the same headspace that you've been going forever. Tonight, we're talking about thinking outside the box, no matter what area of creativity you are in. So, Jim, man, this is what you've been doing, right? Like, this is your thing. So, where do you want to start, though? For real, I think that, a little background of how you got to Kickstarter and sort of jump in from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so, as Jim kind of said at the top of the podcast, things that I've been into in my life have basically been music and baseball. And I went to school and got a marketing degree. And the first job that I interviewed to get was to work on the marketing team for the Boston Red Sox. And I went there and I met with the team. Yeah, Opie giving the thumbs down, right?
You're off. That's it. I'm done with this.
Well, the interesting thing about it was, it was awesome to go there and talk with them. And the whole interview process itself was a whole different story that we don't have to get into. But what it came down to was when they offered me a job, they said, hey, the thing that we do here that's kind of crazy is we pay the people $40 a game for the first season. And if you can hang through the first season, we'll see what happens and stuff that goes on. And now I had lived in Pennsylvania and was going to have to move to Boston, and at the time, and even more so now, one of the most expensive cities in the world, right? And I was like, so, I did the math. $40 a game for, 41 games or whatever. That's about, I don't know, just like $2,500, $3,000, something insane that was something I was like, I'm not saying no, but where am I supposed to live when I come to Boston? That's not enough to like get an apartment. And the guy was like, look, I'll level with you. We hire a lot of people that live around here with their parents, so they don't have to worry about that. But so why I bring that up is I was like, well, I had this other opportunity with Roc, a record label that was in North Carolina. And when it was like, I had this Boston sort of thing, and it was like, bootstrap it and work for baseball, which everybody wants to do, or I love music. Maybe I can do something with that. And my job when I was in school, before I graduated, was I took an internship. I played in a band just like you guys all do, and we were always like on the road, and I was like, I don't want to have that internship where I go to San Francisco for a year and whatever, and it's just like it changes all the stuff. I'm like, I like playing, I'm doing this thing, what can I do? And I found a commercial radio station in State College, where I went to Penn State, and I started to intern with them. Well, within like 3 weeks of being there, they were like, hey, I know you're interning here, but would you like to work here as our music director? Because you do this stuff and whatever. And so I kind of like got into that, and it was from that job that I knew that Roc existed. When the other guys in my band graduated from school, I graduated one semester ahead of everybody. We were like, well, State College is an awesome place. Nobody around here cares about original music. We got to go somewhere that makes sense. And so we did a little tour to try to find out the coolest spot to go. And of the places we went to, we just kind of fell for Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because it was super similar to State College. I was somebody that hadn't really been too much out of Pennsylvania, so I was like not trying to do some crazy splash. But Chapel Hill felt like State College, but it had Durham and Raleigh and Wake Forest and all these places that were like big colleges or had a thing that were within a half an hour of where I was going to live. And plus down there, everybody cared about original music. It was like the opposite. Like in State College, I was in a band that had to play covers, but because we were popular enough, we could play a few originals. But it was like, you had a gig and it was 10 p.m. to 1:45 every single Friday. We played at the same bar. And like, that was like, it was like, so it was funny because what we did was we had original stuff, but then we had to play cover stuff. So we played like basically Warped Tour songs before people really cared about it. So we were like this like Warped Tour tribute band before people were really like behind it. So that was just like our interesting wrinkle to play our own stuff. But anyway, so I had about Yep Roc. I moved to North Carolina, and when I went there, those guys, the only job they had when I talked to them was I applied for some job that was like radio related. I think it was promo for Yep Roc, and they had hired somebody, and they were like, well, the only thing that we have is a warehouse position. What do you think? And I was like, got to start somewhere. So I took it. And, I was working there, and within about a month of doing it, I was packing some box and doing something, and I struck up a conversation with the owner, and I gave him some suggestion, and he was like, that's a great idea. Like, how did you even think of something like that? And I was like, well, I happen to have a marketing degree. And the guy was like, well, why are you in my warehouse? And I told him, I had to start somewhere and get in the door. So I started here and whatever. And literally the next week he moved me to the office side to start doing like record label stuff. And like, it went into it, and like, not to make this the longest story in the world, but I'm just trying to like show how it comes from up. So I was going to maybe go into either retail sales, or there was this like new thing that they had just dealt with, which is like digital music. And I had gotten into this like disagreement with the dude who was the sales manager. And what it was is he wanted to hire me to be a sales guy for minimum wage. And I was like, look, I graduated from college. Like, I understand like working it up, but come on, like, you got to pay me more than minimum wage to be a sales guy. And we got in this back and forth that was like, I think he only cares about money, whatever. And then the owner guy was like, well, do you want to do digital music, or do you want to do this other side? And I was like, do I have to work with that dude? And they were like, nope, he's on the other side of the fence. And I was like, I will do whatever digital thing that there is. And I went to that side, which was great because everything obviously started to turn digital. I worked on that team for about it seems so crazy, like I'm in this like whirlwind, another about month. The guy who was my boss in this section, I'd never got on a call, never talked to an account. He got offered some job at some like place that made ringtones or something at the time that was like, everybody had all this money. And they were like, we can't even touch that to keep you. So that guy left, and they were like, well, dude, this is your department, so go for it. And I had never like spoken to anybody or whatever, but all of a sudden I put it together, and it was like, I worked with them to go through their iTunes contract and set up like these other different things. That was basically like, I set the table with digital places, and then the lawyer came in and they figured all that stuff out. And then all of Redeye stuff and Yep Roc stuff started getting to these different places. And then it was a situation of like setting up the marketing of what are the priorities and setting all those things up. So I worked there for a long time. I learned so much about the music business on the inside. I still played, we were playing around like that, but we didn't, break through in the sense that some other bands had done. So I was like, maybe I'm a business guy when it comes to music, and that's what I'm going to do. So I kind of focused on that. And so I wore a ton of different hats while I worked at Yep Roc. I was there for a little over 10 years, probably like 11 or something, where I was there, because I did the digital thing that I started and talked about. I worked on their retail team, where I went out and met stores and like came up with things. One of the coolest things we did was one of the artists toured with Eddie Vedder for his Into the Wild tour when he put that record out. And so we went on the road with them and then traveled and visited every record store between Boston and North Carolina to like say hello. And the thing that was cool about that was so many record stores were like, we haven't seen a rep come in our store in like 14 years. Like, I can't even believe they're still like, so that was just like interesting thing and all that. And I moved and did strategic stuff. And we're talking about thinking outside the box, right? That's the kind of the theme of this. So like, that was a real thing. I like to like, I got to become the strategic marketing director, which created like initiatives or stuff that we were doing. So I was like, I know you guys know from being on the inside too, but for folks that are listening, there's record stores are still a thing, independent record stores that people are buying stuff from. And there are different coalitions. Like, there's a group that's like, these 12 record stores are together as a team, and you can do this marketing thing with them, or this coalition exists and you can do marketing with them, and it costs whatever amount of money. And it was always this thing where it was like, the coolest stores weren't in the same thing. You had to like buy it all. And I was like, well, you know, I got to think outside the box, right? And so I came up with this idea of, I just called every store that people wanted to be with, which was like Waterloo in Austin, and Music Millennium in Portland, and Salzers in California, and just the places that were like the ones that you wanted to be criminal in Atlanta, you know? And I was like, what if we set up something with you guys where we pay you X to do this end cap and whatever? And everyone was like, yep, let's do it. And I created some alternative end cap that all the labels there could use at a fraction of the cost that covered what they needed for marketing stuff. And it was like, it just works, you know what I mean? And then another outside the box kind of thing was my job was setting up a lot of the marketing kind of like, we had an event, or South by was a big one, right? Where we would do a party or some sort of thing at South by. What do we do? Well, you guys have all been to South by, and you know that it's just stuff on top of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get anything out there or whatever. And I was like, you know, do we need to have the 10,000th day party that somebody's got to try to get to for 14 seconds to say hello and then whatever? Or should we do something completely different? And so what we did that was pretty cool for what we did was we rented out a karaoke bar that didn't have anything happening during the day. And that became our like Redeye studio headquarters, where bands that we set up the front room of this karaoke place to be a recording studio. So bands would come in and they would record stuff live from South by that we could then distribute on all the digital outlets or whatever that we did. And then, because another thing at South by is everything is so loud everywhere all the time, we had like 6 private karaoke booth rooms that one was the green room, one was this meeting room, one was this other thing, and people could just come through there. And we just made a headquarters where we like, instead of having a party and worrying about like providing the free beers or whatever it was, I mean, we obviously had it as green room stuff, but we turned it around and made it something where when people came in through us, they went and played 9,000 other parties that weren't ours, but created content that we could then turn around and then earn them revenue on. So it's really just like looking at your surroundings and figuring out what you got to do to make the most sense for what you have and having it happen.
Hell yeah, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was wild. No, it's super awesome. Yep Roc is cool, man. And the idea of thinking outside the box, I feel like Yep Roc is one of those labels that always had to kind of come in from a different lane, right? Like I got introduced to Yep Roc because I was into the Eli Paperboy Reed stuff.
Sure.
So those records to me sounded really killer, you know, like when he was, you know, before he went and did like the major label thing, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then obviously later you guys like also did like the Blitz and Trapper stuff too. So I feel like you guys always had this sort of like assortment of artists that never really fit in anywhere. Kind of to begin with, you have that like soul dude, and then like sort of pseudo indie rock, country, like Blitz. How do you describe Blitz and Trapper, other than they're a rad band? But yeah, so it makes sense. You know, how do you go from music world? Because I'm sure a lot of things just like translate and follow through. How do you go from like music world into like branding guy, right? Because it's as like you were talking and I was like, oh yeah, you are totally music business guy. And the funny thing for me is in this conversation is that each of us here tend to play that role. Yeah. But like the artist in me hates that role so much. You know what I mean? So as I'm talking, I was like, oh my gosh, I have been on 3,000 phone calls with people just like you. And I'm just like, yes, you gave me like every flashback that I've ever had. But that's not necessarily
that's not bad. I'm sorry.
That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I'm just being transparent here. But how do you, yeah, because what I think people don't understand is when it comes to music and marketing music, you're still marketing ideas. They're ideas. Yes, you have songs. Yes, you have bands. Yes, you have pseudo businesses, which is another thing that people don't understand. The bands are businesses at the end of the day. And the thing that happens is you're getting this message out there. Songs are a small piece of that message, right? So you went from record label guy to, I think, like sort of corporate branding kind of guy, eventually to Kickstarter, to eventually doing your own thing. Did I get that right?
Yeah. So just to kind of, I didn't touch on how I ended up with Kickstarter and where I'm at now. So, you know, I worked for Redeye for a long time, and then I had an opportunity to go to Kickstarter and join their music team. So it was one of these things where it was like, there's this thing that popped up, and what are you going to do about it? Because you're in this comfortable zone that you've been doing this forever, and why do you want to think of something else? Well, I was like, hey, we're getting that, and time is hurtling on in terms of the music business, and things are changing so rapidly. A lot of stuff that we did at Redeye was certainly dependent on like selling vinyl and CDs and physical stuff that is like less and less as each things were going along. And it's like something, I love how this ties into, thinking outside the box, because something I always thought about when I was at Redeye was, I was like, why would anybody ever want to do a Kickstarter project? It just seems like you're rolling out the digital tin cup and shaking it on the side of the road and seeing what's going to happen, And like, I was just like, and somebody I really cared about and loved became the head of music at Kickstarter. It's a funny thing, like we worked, her name is Molly Newman, and she is the manager, or was the manager of the band The Donnas. And something that Redeye did really well is works with bands that have a fan base, but doesn't, I guess work for major labels anymore because they're not selling 10 million units. So they're just like, be gone, what are we gonna do? And they really, work with people that have an audience to get the stuff where it was. I worked with Molly to bring the Donnas to Redeye, and it was one of these things where like we signed this deal with them to bring them on, and they started like an indie label to release their first independent record. And it was like, well, you're the guy that brought them and you know about them, so this is your baby, so go to it. So like I worked with them and put that stuff together, and it's so funny thinking about that now, because it's like back then it was like, here's your budget. Okay, spend $100,000 at Best Buy to get it on the end cap and in their newsletter or whatever it is. And it's like, what a slot machine we're going to pull right now and see what happens. So like, it was kind of wild, but she eventually became the head of music at Kickstarter, and she wanted to work with me and bring me on. So like all that time down the road, just from being around and being a, person that you could trust and count on to do stuff, I got the chance to do that. And I was like, I got to do something different. The world is changing. Crowdfunding is something that probably makes more sense. I should learn about it. And the second I got on the other side of that fence, meaning like I was on the inside of Kickstarter, it took me 15 minutes to realize that I was completely wrong about everything that I had thought about with it. And it's always about the fans, which is exactly what everything about any successful band is about the fans. Because it's like, on one side of the fence, we were always like, well, how could we even use it? People would think it's so weird if this was brought to you by this label and it's on Kickstarter. And no fan cares about that. Fans care about the band. They don't care like, why does their label not doing this or whatever? They're just like, I get this new record, I'm going to do this thing, let's do it. And I just saw from seeing all these projects that were out there and different things that happened and all that like people really just care about bands directly and they'll support them, and they don't think that it's begging. And it all comes down to the story and what you say. So when you come up with a story that's real and authentic and it's something you guys believe in, The Inevitables is a great, great, great example of, we're a week-ish, 2 weeks maybe, we want to say that, into this project. We're shattered our first goal. We're on our way to our third stretch goal. And it's because everything about it is authentic. We thought it out. Your stuff exists. It's not just like, how could we go out there and grab some cash from somebody with chair pants or whatever the story is? You know what I mean? It's like, it's all together and people really buy in and care, and you can see how it works. And how it led to Craft Services was I worked on the music team, and one thing that just isn't part of what Kickstarter does is helping people directly with running projects. So my goal was, or my job on the music team was, I actually lived in Nashville, and I was like the liaison to having people use Kickstarter. And I talked to a bunch of people, and it was always like hyping the platform, and folks would be like, I love it. How do I start a project? What do I do? How can you help me? And I'd always have to say, well, when you figure it out, you give me a call because I can help you with this marketing. But until then, like, try to find it on the internet. And nothing really great exists out there. I mean, there's stuff and people are doing things, but a lot of it has to do with like, okay, you come and you bring me your $50,000 ad budget, and then we'll place it out there, and then we'll see what happens. And like, who's got that? Unless you're really just trying to like swing for the fences with your, crazy product of sorts, it doesn't make sense. My co-founder, Steve Sabazley of the band Punchline, we've been buds for a long time growing up in central Pennsylvania. And I helped those guys run a Kickstarter project that they did a few years ago while I was at Kickstarter. And it was like another thing, like when those guys went to Redeye, I helped them with their first, independent opportunity when they released their first record off of Fueled By. And we did it through them, and I was with them. And then we did the Kickstarter together, and Steve and I were like, we've been buds. We work together so well. we should do something where we help people. And I was saying to him about how there's this hole at Kickstarter. Like, I help those guys run a project because they're my boys, but like, I didn't have the capacity to do that for anybody else. But we knew there was something there based off of just like being able to help, and everybody in the world that can use this that wants to take advantage of it. And so Steve and I teamed up, and it was cool. It's one of the first outside of a band ideas I had with somebody that I talked to, that the next day he was like, I've been thinking about this, and I put this document together, and I think we should get started. And I was like, this is the guy I got to work with. He's the first person that literally did something that wasn't waiting for me to plan that out and do it. And I was like, we got to do it. And so it worked out perfectly in the sense of my boss, Molly, who I talked about before, she ended up taking another opportunity and leaving Kickstarter. And there was like that crossroads, like, do I stay here or try to move to New York or whatever the situation could possibly be? Or do I make myself my own boss and go out and do this and help people the way that I know I can do it? And, you know, Steve and I it was one of these things too, where we talked about it a lot, and it was like, hey, things are changing. We got to think outside the box. We got to stop thinking about mapping this out and just do it. And so we put together some stuff and jumped in, and here we are 60 projects later. I feel we finally refined what needs to happen, you know, and it's all about just like having cool ideas and bedside manner and being able to be a teammate that you can count on, you know, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, man. You know what, as you were like talking about it, and you had mentioned, you know, being authentic, you know, if someone's doing Kickstarter, but I think that even like jumps beyond anything. Like if you're a creative, you know, whether it be a musician or whether it be a writer or whether it be whatever artist, I think that that level of authenticity, people want to invest in that, right? And I think that's the whole key. Like, I never supported anything musical on Kickstarter, but I did support, like, I'm a knife and flashlight guy, like EDC like guy, everyday carry for people who don't know, right?
Okay.
So I've supported people that put up, oh, look at this, you know, bitchin' flashlight. It's like a size of a bullet, but it's bright as fuck. You can see from space, right? Like, and the thing for me, I believed in those people. Like, I believed in the idea, but when those people were talking, they were laying out and they were explaining, you know, being a talking head even, this is why it is, and this is how I did it, and this is, you know, everything about it. I went, yeah, I believe this person can take this idea and get it to here if only people believed in that idea as well. And I got that so hard from that, but it took me a very long time to put music in that same category, you know? And I don't know why I jumped that shark, but like, I just thought to myself, like, why would I do it on that end when we could just do it on this end? Why are we going to Kickstarter? Why would that happen? But it makes so much sense in that the nuances and the showing people what it is, and then people in turn going, we believe and we want to support. We want to support from the start, and we want to get you to where that is. That's a beautiful feeling, right? But that took me thinking completely outside of my box, which was, okay, music is meant to go in the studio, have a budget, you put it out in digital, physical form, and you just go with it, right? Taking it completely out of that realm into something else blew my mind. Like when me and Obi talked about it and said, I think crowdfunding is going to do it, and I went, I know Steve from Punchline. He has a company that does this, helped with so-and-so. Okay, let's explore. But that took monumental, like sort of like, you know, just, okay, we're leaving our safe zone and we're going into another place. Little did I know, it's still a safe zone, you know, it's crazy.
Right. It's funny, man, because I remember we were in Orlando when we started. We were in Orlando, we were like, grabbed coffee and we were sitting on this bench, and like the word crowdfunding just like kind of came out in the conversation. And Vinny and I both like kind of had the same expression. It was just like crowdfunding. Like, you know what I mean? But as we started like kind of talking through it, you know, and to the point that I was making before, like as you were talking, like it is an authentic message. It is about, it's not just about the idea, it's about the story and getting the stories out there. And it's about, you know, one of my favorite things that I've enjoyed in this process, you know, as we've kind of gotten the ball rolling, right? Because you got to figure out how to work with the people that you bring in, right? It's a collaboration.
For sure.
So once we like kind of figured out, and I feel like we kind of got that really, we were ready to like kind of go downhill. Um, I it allowed me to actually be more of an artist and think creatively versus having to try to split my brain every waking second of the day and go, okay, this idea has to come out this way, but now I got to worry about the business side of it too. Like, you know what I mean? It actually allowed me to like take a hat off and put another hat on, and then take that hat off and then put another hat on. So if anybody out there is like thinking about, well, what is it like to work with a company like Craft Services? That would be my endorsement, you know, once we were able to kind of like figure it out, because it always starts at the very beginning. Any creative endeavor has to start with trust. And I'm not plugging Concentric Circles here, but that's where we started as like
I was just about to say the same thing as a callback to that, because that's what it is, man. It's like you guys got to a point that you could trust us. Not that you didn't originally think that, but it's kind of like, oh, I know these dudes, but I really got, like, you have to trust somebody enough to take that hat off and know that we, like, you know, we can guide the thing not into, you know, the side of a bridge or whatever.
Yeah, and go back even further. I had to trust Vinny enough, which I did. So like when we even had the crowdfunding, you know, thing, and he was like, "Hey, like Steve from Punchline," where I was like, "Okay," because I knew that it was like even just so outside of the realm of anything that he's done. You know what I mean? So, but as we were talked about what the Inevitables, you know, was what we wanted it to become, and you know, and it's like everything else. Like it's like, you know, we live in a world where everything's like right in front of you. So you think everyone's just like, oh, this is the thing. But like when you're a creator and coming up with something, you're dreaming far beyond, you know, Kickstarter. You're dreaming far beyond, what do we have, 21 days left to go on this? We're dreaming way beyond 21 days. You know what I'm saying? Which is a beautiful thing in and of itself. So this is a part of the journey. And what I've always said this, what I love about working with Vinny is that we really do account for steps along the way. So like we're always kind of prepared, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so you're letting people into that journey. We let you guys into our journey, and we you know, luckily we're able to kind of figure this thing out, and we got 21 more days to go. I got to buy our Jim a house, so we got to get this off. But I, you know, in terms of like the relationship, you know, it is a huge testament to trust and choosing to collaborate together. You know what I mean?
And for on my end too, like even using Kickstarter to begin with is there's this like little punk rock in all of us that are like, oh, why do you have to do that? Like
Yeah,
that,
man.
like we all have had that at one time, no matter if you deny it or not. Like it's been a thing. And then I started realizing, I'm like, this is the most punk rock thing. Like this is literally like DIY funding. Like, hey, I have the stuff. I don't like have it yet, but you could help me have it, you know? And like, and it created like a tangible visual thing for people to want to participate. So like, you know, even with Craft Services, like there's the trust of, is Kickstarter even the right fit for this? Are you guys helping us with Kickstarter the right fit for that? And then when they all start like lining up, you go, oh, this is why it's a proven thing. Because the whole time we've had, you know, you've had results, Kickstarter's had results. And then now that we're seeing it, we go, okay, it's all good. But, you know, there's that like level of anxiety you have to just like chip away at to like get to trust and understanding and healthy thinking.
Totally. Well, I mean, the thing is, so we've had a lot of projects that we kind of have we have a large sample size to kind of see what works and what doesn't, right? But the thing that we can never control and never will be able to do it is, you know, the adage, you can lead a horse to water, but can you make them drink? Like, we could have had the most awesome rolled out project, and if people didn't care, they weren't going to take advantage of it, and we would have been screwed. But fortunately, people love it, and the way that we have it together and the story is presented, I think, in such a direct way that people get it, that it's doing what it's doing, and it's awesome, and I'm happy.
Yeah, it's wild though. You know, it's like, take it back to, you know, the point of what we're talking about tonight. It's like, think outside the box. And I started to push myself outside of comfort zones a lot, especially, you know, in the last maybe 2 years, you know, whether it be, you know, taking a chance on writing something that was different, taking a chance on, you know, writing music with Obi and Alex, right? And bringing people where, for me, I always like to kind of I have those steps, and I like to like kind of like clock along, and I know, okay, with these steps, we're going to get to there, no problem. But if we skip those steps, then it's something we're potentially setting ourselves up for failure, right? So for me, I think that like going out of my comfort zone and thinking outside of the box, that includes letting people into that circle, right? Because for all intents and purposes, I go, this is how it should be, right? But other people, dude, it doesn't always have to be like that. You have to look at it this other way. And that's a beautiful thing about marketing, and that's a beautiful thing about pushing yourself anywhere that you haven't been before. That's right as well. Like it's not saying that I was wrong or someone else was wrong this whole time, but people could be right in the same that gravity, right? People could go, this is my way and this is your way. And I'm saying that, but it's so fucking obvious that that's true, right? Different strokes for different folks. I mean, they made a fucking TV show about it, right? Song and all that, right? But like it makes so much sense to me. But when you're caught in the moment and you're caught in your own headspace, you go, oh, like this is obvious, you know? Like when you look out and go, that works, and let's go on, let's try and make it happen. You know, it's like this is Jono, this is your first time Kickstarter, right? Or
yeah, I was part of an anthology like a month before that, but I was kind of just like riding the coattails of it and not like, you know, with my hand on the wheel with everyone else.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild because for me it's all new, you know, and a lot of components, and it truly is an out of the box moment. I'm living it right now because I wouldn't know, I've never done anything like crowdfunding before, and sure as hell I've never done anything like what the Inevitables were doing with that, you know, and kind of crushing all of the comic world and the music world and everything else that goes along with it. But man, like, I don't know, like it trips me out because there's a certain point where you're from the physical music world, right? Like, you know, you had here's the marketing plan. We got to talk to the radio guy, and there's the indie rep that we have to talk to. You know, we have to grease the palms of like the local college radio station. Like, wink, wink, like, we're going to get you number 10. Here's some money. Like, do whatever, right? But like, you went through all that, but into this other world that's completely, okay, this is what our plan is. Do you believe in our plan? If you do, here it is. The idea is tangible, but there's no tangible good right here that you're selling someone. And that's the thing that trips me out, right? Like this is so brand new to me that it's like you're hawking this idea. Well, no shit, everybody has a great idea. Like, but you know, in this world that we're living in right now, we're taking the idea and people are believing it enough to help support, you know, and bring and back it.
Also, that video we have is super dope. So that kind of just like delivers us through everything.
But yeah, but like Vinny, as you're talking, I think the thing that like I want to get across to people who might be listening and like other people with ideas out there is that, you know, and like, you know, when you were talking earlier and I was like, oh man, you are the marketing guy. But for like, we've all sat in those meetings. We've all had those meetings with booking agents. Like my favorite meeting, and the booking agents are always trying to sell you stuff too, right? Like, I love when he would sit with a booking agent. It's like, oh, like we should tour with Dave Matthews Band. Like that would be amazing. You know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, sure. Like you're not going to go work on that. Like, what are you talking about? Right. But the thing about this world that we're sort of in together is that there's this idea. The idea, you know, got refined on the creative end. We started talking to you in terms of like an executing marketing thing, and then it actually happened. And then it actually became tangible, right? We launched the project. You know, we put a lot of thought into the execution, like, and that's the infrastructure was solid, you know, and I think that the infrastructure before we took the project, before we even took the Inevitables to craft services was solid, you know what I mean? And that's been my biggest takeaway. And, you know, as a creative person in this whole thing is that like, there's a ton of people out there that have got amazing ideas. There are a ton of people sitting on great inventions, great paintings, the next amazing comic, the next amazing song, but there's no infrastructure to get that from point A to point B.
Totally.
And I think that along with the authenticity, you know, like it's funny, like I saw someone say something like, oh, like the Inevitables like is the next like super group, and I'm just like, that's so funny, man. Like it's just so funny to like to read that word in that context and know my personality and know Vinny's personality. You know what I mean? And just to kind of be like, no, we're just fans, like that. You know what I mean? Like we're fans and we're music like lovers and we're art lovers and we're just chasing like a creative dream. You know what I mean? And we're just super grateful that enough people out there right now are going, hey, this is cool. You know? So like, you know, every bit of it has just been like a huge victory, you know, from like a soul perspective. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's so awesome to hear. And no, I mean, we pride ourselves on being able to help people kind of build that audience and get it ready in a way that they can do something that works for them. So like the biggest thing, well, there's two problems that I think that we face with a lot of people with misconceptions on projects, or when they come to projects that there's problems. One is if you ask for too much money when you use a Kickstarter, it's inevitable. I mean, it's going to fail because Kickstarter is all or nothing. So if you ask for too much and you don't have a plan to get to that bottom, you won't get anything. You know, we've only at Craft Services, we've only had one project of all of the projects we worked on, and we worked on 60, one that failed, and it was because it was too much money. They wanted 25,000. We thought that all the pieces were in place for it to get there, and at the end it raised 19.5, but which is a lot of money considering what the guy was going to do. But because it wasn't 25, it got 0. So it was a lesson that we could take. So we all, we're like the Undertaker. He's got a loss too. So we have one loss, and the rest of it is all wins.
We'll appreciate that reference.
We'll see where it goes. But like, it was a great thing that now we can tell people and they can understand that. But the second thing outside of asking for too much money is, a lot of people, I think Kickstarter is like field of dreams. Like, you build this project and people are going to flock to it because they love your idea and it's going to happen. And that is absolutely the furthest thing that could possibly happen.
Right.
You have to have your like audience together and all the stuff. Like, you plant your garden and you're watering and you're working on it. And, depends on what you plant, it's going to grow faster or slower, but you can't start this project till it's ready. Because when your project is out there, you're on the clock. It's all about the sense of urgency. There's 30 days or whatnot, and then it's over. But you got to have everybody together ahead of time, because when you're out and live, it's hard. Like, we have people that come to us sometimes that want us to perform what we refer to as rescue missions. And it's so difficult to do that because there's so many things you put in place before you even open the door to get you set to where it was. We did some stuff. We thought outside the box. We did that soft launch, idea that we use that's different that people don't usually do. And it's kind of like, you got to have that together. And if you don't have those things in place, it doesn't set you up to fail, but it doesn't help you to unlock your full potential.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I to go like through what you were just saying, I didn't think that, Obi can be, my witness to it. I didn't think that it was a lot. Like, hey, like, we're Inevitables was something new starting at a baseline conversation that we had, Jim, where it was, hey, what about your Facebook group? Do you have street team? I go, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we're just starting. And I talked to Obi before, and I go, dude, we're taking the risk right now. Like, this is people believing in what's going to happen. And you could hedge your bet as much as possible, but you're right, man. Like, if people ultimately don't come to the table with it and go, we believe so much, and you might have 19,000 people are believing in trying to get to that 20 grand, but you just run out of steam. And that's not that the idea is not bad. It just ran out of steam, man. And like, I freaked out about that a couple times. Like, do we have like what it is? And to get there and on paper, it makes sense, but you're in essence starting a band and a comic book at the same time, two particular projects at the same time. They're linked, obviously, under the umbrella, and starting at the basement and working its way up, man. And that's how come I have a gratitude check every day that the Kickstarter is going. It's like, I am grateful, man. I'm grateful to people who go, yeah, like, and it's funny because I don't necessarily think that like Obi's hiding out anywhere in New Jersey, or even Jono or myself or Jim. But when people go, I didn't even know what you were up to. What do you mean? Like, I'm not hiding somewhere. I'm not like the Unabomber in a fucking cabin out in the middle of nowhere. Like,
Right.
like I put out a book and I do this. What are you talking about? Like, dude, it's good to see you're doing stuff now. And I'm like,
I know, it's wild.
really? Like that's
Finally.
that's what it is. Like, but you know, the gratitude check every night, like just this is awesome. You know, thank you. Like whatever it is there, man, people that are supporting, it's a thank you always, man. Like
absolutely. Thank you to all the backers, and thank you guys for wanting to bring us on the team and help out. We're really excited to be here doing it.
Yeah, man. You know, the whole project, and like the thing I want people to know is like it really this whole thing has been a think outside of the box endeavor. You know, because yes, we've all played in bands before, we've all toured before, we've all done the thing, but like this is a brand new, you know, project. Like Vinny said, like we've, you know, the moment that I knew, and like, you know, whenever you're part of something, it's like when you know, you write that song, when you write that song, there's something, you just know there's like something special about it, you know. But there's like a few moments that I knew with the Inevitables, like when we first dialed in the chorus to Fort Lauderdale, and then when I first heard what that opening horn line was going to be. So the first moment was when we dialed in the chorus. The second moment for me was when the horn thing happened, and I was like, oh dude, this is going to be epic. And then the third moment for me was when we were able to, like, we took a turn, I think, with like the script with Jono. Like we had these cool ideas and we knew we were sitting on like the precipice of something. And then like once that story came together, for me, that's when I was like, oh, holy crap. Okay, we have something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I like kind of crapped myself for a second because I was like, it was a handle with care moment. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It was like, okay, we've got something. What are we going to do? Like, and then luckily, you know, I've got a dude like Vinny where I'm like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, you know, and it's like, all right, let's flesh this out. You know what I mean? And again, it just allowed us to put this infrastructure in place that was so solid. But the whole time you're believing in, you know what I mean? Like every time I hear that opening horn line on that tune, I'm just like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what?
Well, even I remember Vinny sent me the songs and he's like, you know how it is. You're in a band. These are demos. This is not the record.
Yeah.
Heads up. Just keep that in mind. And like, but we have that so in tune where it's like we're all forward thinking now because we've had to be. Like, you know what a demo sounds like. And then I remember the first time I heard the actual thing, like I started getting like teary-eyed. I'm like, oh man, this is like real. Like, holy shit. And you know, it's the same too. Like on the comic side, like you get like when Devin started sending the character designs, dude, all of us were losing our minds. We're like, oh, this is so real now. You know, that like for me, and again, like I mentioned it before, that video just kicked my ass. Like I was just like outside and I had like this wild week, and like wild, like being stressful, not just super fun. And I like sitting with like a little glass of whiskey and I opened my phone to like check the video out. And by the time it was done, I was like, we did it. I don't even care if a dollar comes in. Like we did this. This is sweet. So, you know, talking about Kickstarter and all this stuff, Jim, we have a great challenge for you. And this is always my favorite part because I get to time people. So I just, you know, I love schedules. So,
Nice.
So we are going to pitch you products and you are going to tell us what you would do to market them for Kickstarter.
Market them for Kickstarter?
Or just market them in general, rather. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we're looking for a pitch. So, and Obi and Vinny, let me throw this at you guys too. What if we do an immediate, we don't give them a minute to think about it. We give them a minute to start pitching right when I say it.
Oh, damn.
Because that's so much funnier.
Yes.
So, okay. So am I going to have just one product or multiple products? Like,
Well,
is there
you're gonna have one at a time.
Okay. All right.
So I'll give you a 10-second think about it time, and then your marketing brain has to go full speed and you just start going.
Oh, you're
Okay.
going to be so good at this. It's going to be great.
All right. We'll see how it goes.
All right, ready? So first product, snail shovel. And I'll let you know when the think time is over.
Snail shovel. All right. So sorry.
All right, go.
All right, so I'm thinking that a snail shovel has probably got to be marketed towards high-end French restaurants that use it for escargot. So we have to create some sort of either snail mascot or some kind of like huge celebrity endorsement, like Gordon Ramsay's gonna do something insane with it to make sure that every one of these places have it on the table, and people ask for it if it's not there.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It'd be great if I was like, "Oh, that's it."
Yeah, I don't know how much deeper you want me to go with the pitch.
I'm like, let me get my pamphlet out. A snail shovel is when you are in your backyard playing with your kids. All right. All right. Ready for the next one?
Yeah, sure.
This is the dumbest one, but I love it. It's called Book by a Baby. It's a book that is written by a baby, and all of the text is just transcribed from someone hearing a baby talk.
Right.
And then let me know when you're ready to sell me on this. Shark Tank me.
Okay, so the book. Wait, so the book is it's baby talk, and the book is. I'm sorry. The book. You got to repeat this to me, Jono.
Sure. No, you're good. I mean, it's a very obvious thing.
Right.
I don't understand where the confusion's coming from here. I'm a little.
I thought you were a marketeer. So, all right, it's called Book by a Baby, and it's a book written by a baby.
All right, so that's it. So it's a book written by a baby. So, so the first dumb thing that pops into my head is somehow the marketing is tied into that. Like, remember where there was that animated baby that would like dance on TV?
Ally McBeal.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So we got to bring that back to be the pitch person for this thing. But then I don't know if it's like too, but here's the thing, why that would work. Here's why I'm going to die on that hill. You bring that back because the people that have babies that would care about this baby talk book, maybe there's a way that you can get, it's like a thing where it records your own baby to have in this book and you send it to grandparents or something. But anybody who's old enough to have a baby is most likely going to remember that weird dancing baby thing. So once you put it out there, the nostalgia kicks in, people are feeling that vibe. And I don't know, we tie it in with Hallmark, and they have those cards that you can record stuff into, and it's a perfect baby shower gift.
I think that's good. I think that's good. I think you went down the right path with that one.
All right.
You know what I mean?
You got the Obi stamp of approval. It's a hard one to get, but you got it.
Sorry. Actually, the funny thing, the dumb thing is so dumb. My brain actually started like trying to like think about that one. I was just like, actually, there's some cool things I think we could do there.
Like I was laughing when I was writing. Like, first of all, it's annoying how quickly I wrote these three down, and I was like, why are these in my brain at all? The thing I was thinking about was pitching this to someone, being like, but you don't get it. Like, babies don't even say real words, So it's like you're like seeing like the inside of a baby's brain, and then people being like, yeah, that's awful. Why would I buy that? No, but you don't get it, dude.
But it's a book by a baby.
A baby wrote a book. And then
That's so sick.
And then last but not least, dog earbuds.
Yeah, well, first of all, those are called earbuds. First of all, that's going to be the name. I mean, so the dog is probably. I wonder why a dog would need earbuds, but they totally need them for what? Damn, I don't know.
They gotta listen to music.
Yeah. So maybe they're just tired of when they're in the car with you and the bullshit that you got to put them down with. They like got to have their own thing. So we got to market these. But I don't know. I feel like beyond the name, I feel like if I was in this meeting and I came up with a name, they would be like, yes, let's go to lunch. And that's what would happen after that.
So you passed the first test. And my first test was, I was like, oh, they should be called AirBuds because AirPod. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to write that. I'm going to see if you get it.
What if it's, so I've talked to Steve about this. What if we make skins for AirPods that you could do like that? And it could be like, you have like the thing, but then you make some sort of like.
Oh, we lost you.
I think you turned your, you turned it on when you touched it.
You turned your audio off.
Yeah, you turned on your earbud.
I do love the pitch of like dogs just not liking the music that you listen to in the car. Like that's so funny to me. And I just like understanding that that's what's upsetting the dog. Like you put on like Celine Dion and the dog's like, and they're like, fine, Kid Rock again. And the dog's like, yeah.
Oh, they just want to listen to the Baja, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
There it is. There it is.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize I was so committed to the physical comedy that I ruined the setup of this.
Yeah.
I mean, you like Gallagher that situation. You smashed
Right.
that watermelon for us.
It's great. Beautifully done. Beautifully done.
I thought there was one more. Wasn't there one more?
Bonus
Oh, are we doing the fourth one?
Yeah.
It was one of our gym suggestions. All right, ready?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
All right.
we might as well get it all the way.
Yes. Good call, Vinny.
We just gotta like get this out. All right, so
You always got to get it out.
all right, so speaking of that segue, enema pants. 3, 2, 1.
All right. So enema pants are clearly a disposable item that you either get at the doctor's office or no, it comes as a double package when you're at that pharmacy. So whenever you do the enema, you put these disposable pants on. So for any sort of afterward situation, you're kind of covered. You don't have to ruin your J. Crews or whatever you got going on, right? So that's kind of what I think of with that. It's a combination. Maybe the company that makes the enemas is doing it as a loss leader, so they create it as some sort of bonus thing where like you're getting the pants just for buying the product, and it's like some way to pitch you. Or I don't know, maybe there's a chance if this is I don't have I don't have any personal experience with this, I should say, so I don't know the situation, but maybe this is a situation kind of like with razor blades, where like razor blades are the thing that you need, so they make those the most expensive thing, and so maybe the pants got to be. There's a way to make that same thing there with that. I don't know.
I feel like we should make the price point very high for enema pants because we know that everyone's gonna want these.
So enema pants should exist just because the DDM exists. So just allow me to go a little. I'm sorry, I'm going to take us a little off track here. DDM, my friends, better known as the doo-doo monster, can strike at any time. You never know. Maybe you're sitting in traffic. You know what I mean? Or maybe like you woke up that day and your stomach is it's not really being that great. It's not feeling so good. You know?
That's suburban folklore. It's like the Jersey Devil that you're talking about in the bathroom. It's like,
No, man.
You know the Baba Yaga?
urban legends with Obi Fernandez.
So the commercial is like, like some chick like in a store doing her thing, or some dude in a store doing his thing, and it's like DDM strikes. And then like they turn around, the camera's right there, and they're like, enema pants, I'm wearing them right now. No worry. There's no worry when you have enema pants.
It's like, oops, I crap my pants, but the opposite, where it makes you crap your pants.
Dude, exactly. It's fine. It's
Right. Like they're in some high-end furniture store or something, and all of the couches are white, so they have to be very
absolutely.
That's the new COVID mask. They're like, we're gonna need you to wear your enema pants too, just before you come in our store.
Absolutely. And I feel like I should start apologizing profusely for my commercial pitch. But anyway.
in conta pants. Idea.
All right, get us out of this one, Jono. Get us out of this one.
I mean, now that you've opened the floodgates,
We're thinking outside the box here, guys. We really are. We really, really are. So I will segue us out of this one. What do you think for you guys, all of us working on Inevitables together, what would have been your top out of the box moments? Starting with you, we'll go Jono, Vinny, Jim.
Okay.
I think my out of the box moment for me was like being a part of like just seeing like the Kickstarter tiers and all that kind of stuff. And I know we had a call where we were talking about like how much should this one be, what does this one offer, all that kind of stuff. And that for me is a strange thing because it's very like future forward information. Like you don't know if we'll even end up having to do that, but you have to think like, what if we physically do this thing that we're offering, right? Because people are paying for it, and it's not like they're paying like $5, So that was one for me where I was like, this is such a projection of a project, but that's what Kickstarter is like. And then once we got to that pre-sale point where it was like, oh, we hit our goal, it was just like, I could breathe again. So yeah, I think part of it was just being part of something and not 100% knowing it's happening, but like knowing it's happening, you know?
Nice.
Jim?
What about you, Vinny?
Oh, me or Jim? Me?
Whatever.
Jim? I'll go. I think like out of the box moments for me all have to do with other people, right? I got a text over the weekend, and it was a fan of Less Than Jake, but a friend as well, because we both have each other's number. But he was like, "Yeah, I pulled the trigger, and I'm supporting the Inevitables thing." I go, "That's cool." He's like, "Yeah, I'm hoping for the best with getting drawn into the comic," and knowing that that tier of being drawn into the comic and having that's like a big spend. And that was an out of the box moment that someone would go, I want to support, but I want to support in a massive way and in a physical way of being in the comic. And that blew my mind that like someone would go there and go like, yeah, I'm not only believing, but I'm believing wholeheartedly that I want my like face and body to be drawn into the comic. That blew my mind. Right. I did a podcast with some guys last night, and his moment was, I like comics and I like ska music. And the first two lines of the pitch on the Inevitables page, the Kickstarter page, he went, I don't even have to read anything more. I'm already going to support. And that blew my mind again, that like undying love for he heard one song or bits of one song, but he loves comics and loves ska music and was sold because of the people that are involved in the project, and went, yeah, this is what it is. And the third one for me, out of the box moment, is being able to take my hand off the wheel and knowing that there's a bunch of other people that are holding the wheel down, and it's not this like eye on the road type thing, which I usually do. Like, you could take the hand off and let other people guide it a little bit and then bring it back on. And that might not seem like a big deal or out of box moment, but letting go of an idea and putting it in the hands of somebody else to take to another place is a big deal for me and to a lot of other people as well. It's that trust thing. So, Jim?
It's so great for you to say that, man. I appreciate hearing that because, yeah, dude, you have so many things going on, but you got to like, as well as anybody that you have, like, just as a person, it's kind of like, well, I know that I care about this. Am I the person that cares the most about this thing, that other people couldn't possibly care as much as I do or whatever. And it's great to know that, like, we do care about that. And you can focus on some other things when you need to, and you don't have to feel like you have to have this whole thing completely like, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, you don't have to always have the hand on the wheel, but I like to use my knees all the time. So
I gotta be safe. I get it.
But no one else sees it, but you're like, it's there.
That's
all right, so I think my out of the box choice, and it's going to be kind of a plug, but I think it's a great seg because I think an out of the box thing we got going on that's going to be awesome is this watch party that we're going to do with Pick It Up, the Ska in the 90s documentary on Saturday. Because it's tangentially related, but it's a thing that we got the opportunity to work with somebody that has an audience that absolutely connects with what you guys are doing. You can talk about something that you guys are all familiar with, that whole scene, and just talking about that, and we'll have some fun and have people in there. And that just isn't, I mean, I haven't seen a Kickstarter project that's doing something like that with somebody. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened. There's a lot of projects out there, but it's cool to be able to have an idea like this, everybody being willing to do it, having the folks inside. And it's just a cool way to bring another cool project in. And like, we're not competing with them. Nobody's competing with anybody. We're all trying, rising tides lift all boats, right? So we're out there doing the thing for the scene and just seeing what we can do. And it's awesome. Cool that
it's forever now.
Right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, for me, it goes back to like the inception of this is that like once, Vinny and I started like solidifying this thing, I knew that the approach was going to just be completely different than anything else that I've ever done. So I had to sort of like, I couldn't look at this as like, oh, it's a music thing or it's a record. I couldn't, I had to look at it as if it was like its own beast and sort of be like way more open to possibilities and ideas and collaboration than I've ever had to be. So it really forced me to like really look at this from a completely different angle, and I'm glad that it did because it's doing its thing. I'm super stoked. Yeah, man. So with that being said, before Jim comes and brings this thing home, Jim Logrando, do you wanna tell us anything? Want to plug anything besides the watch party this weekend? Tell us where we can find you, where we can find craft services.
Right on. Well, if anybody is out there has a project that they're interested in, kind of asking questions about or seeing what's up, I mean, something that, I would like to think that most people, if they have an idea and they have some amount of people that care about them, that their project can work. Because something that we like to do is like, if somebody's a band and they have 1,000 fans, right? Well, we try to tap into as many of those 1,000 fans as we can to help support them, as opposed to being like, well, how do we turn this 1,000 fans into 10,000 fans before something happens? I mean, we try to do both of those things together so they can grow their audience as well as tap in deeper to the audience that they have. So that's kind of what we try to do a lot with what we have going on. But, stuff I want to plug outside of our project is coming soon with Steve and Punchline. Those guys worked really hard on their Kickstarter to do a music special. And it's been some time for it to finally get done and get out there, but it is done. I've watched it probably 90 times, which is that's just what you got to do. I'm tired of seeing it, but nobody else has seen it, and everyone is stoked for it. And that's going to be coming really, really soon. We're going to be dropping the trailer soon and all that with it. And I think people are going to love that. So I want to push the Punchline music special for when it comes out. And yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome. Nice. Where do we find you, man? Where do we find you before you go?
Oh yeah. So our website is our company is called Craft Services, but that is being squatted on by somebody who is trying to sell that domain name for thousands upon thousands of dollars. So our website is enjoycraftservices.com, and you can go there and check it out. We have some free guides and stuff that people can download, sort of like some tips and tricks and things to keep things straight if you're trying to do it yourself, or, people can reach out to us, and we would always love to hear from you and see what we can do.
Nice, man. Well, thanks so much, brother. Good talking to you.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see what these next 3 weeks bring.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Cool. See you guys later.
Man, that was friggin' amazing. And all I have to say is that I think Jim should have his own podcast. Like, that guy is one of the probably most dynamic talkers we've had yet. And but one question that I had, like, for you guys, about when the idea was initially spawned, like, how long did it take, do you think? Because a lot of people think about Kickstarter, it's like, oh yeah, I just have to have an idea and then I'm off to the races. I think it should be probably called Kick Finisher, because for it to be done right, you really should have the project very solid by the time it's ready to go out to the public. So like, from like, I guess, idea to go, like, how much was in place? How much pregame did you all do?
A lot, man. I mean, that's probably November to launch. Really, I mean, like, that was building content and ideas and reaching out to people that we wanted on the team and kind of going through it, because you got to realize that, Liana, right? She was on the show, and she's the sequential artist for the comic book side. But you got to remember that took a hot moment to be able to go, okay, you're the person, and let's go, right? So that was with everything. I mean, I wanted, in my mind's eye, I wanted Jim Mafood to do the characters. And, I talked to him and he was like, I'm busy. And rightfully so. Dude's insanely talented. And it was just a weird thing that I found Devin and to do it and the approach. And he was super fucking cool about it too. So you got to realize that it was, me texting Jono on Christmas night, hey, you want to talk? Like, let's talk this out, right? Like, yeah. And it was an ongoing of little by little, this like drip method of adding people to the team, right? And that was even to the last minute. Dude, I'm going to tell you, for everyone that is going to do or considering Kickstarter, when we finally said, okay, we're going to do a Kickstarter, and I signed up for a Kickstarter, and then I started to go through everything, I went, we need help. Yeah. Because I felt like I was in uncharted waters. I did not know what was going on. We needed someone with a map, right? And that's why Craft Services, they had the map and said, you guys, you need to do this and this and this. And it definitely was a moment of, it takes a village to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And like, dude, that goes with you, Jim, and Jim L and Jim T, Jono, Obi, everybody. It definitely was a effort of a team in its truest sense, a collaborative team to get us to where we are. Like it's been months to do it.
And you can't do it on your own. And it's one of like big misnomers about, like, there's a lot of misnomers about Kickstarter, but a lot of people think like, oh, it's just something I can do by myself and put together. I can put it up. But the guy got a potato, put a potato up and made $1 million or whatever. You know, it's not the way it works. And like I've done 3 Kickstarters, 2 that worked, 1 that did not. And it was mostly me and a small group of people, and they barely funded. If like I had known about Craft Services when I did mine, I would have been happy as a clam. So there's I guess a post-perfect future pitch for Craft Services and their services out there is that you should look into it, because you can't do it by yourself. I guess you can if you're a robot or something, but you need a team, and that's what it's all about. And involving the fans is part of that teamwork as well.
And I feel like, you know, there's so many moving parts too, because like what Vinny was talking about, like everyone has wild schedules. Like this isn't like, yeah, you know, we all have like 5 months off work. Like, let's get rolling. Like all of us are just like, and again, Vinny, like, you know, me texting you, like I finished a thing and I was like, I just was on your Twitter. Hey, and I'm like, you're doing 1 million things. Like, and I'm like, that's not what I meant by that. You know, like all of us are like constantly doing that and like coming up with ideas and hitting each other up or whatever. And like, you know, even with artists and stuff, like you can't just jump in and be like, hey, this month you want to go for it? It's like, well, I have these other projects. I have to like align perfectly with this, you know? So like being able to like massage all of that together to make one of the things we're doing, and there's like 50 things involved with this, you know, it's like beyond my comprehension.
You know, it's a funny thing I think about, and you guys can totally add to this, because like the 4 of us are on like a text chain together. You know, me, Vinny, and Jono are on a text chain together for certain things, and then you got like me, Vinny, and Alex on a text chain, and then, you know, there's like all these conversations that like involve the things that we're doing together. But then outside of what we're doing together, we all have our own bands. We all have our own other projects, like, you know what I mean? So the idea of like the conversations when people are, you know, when people just think like, oh, it just happens. Like, no, man, there's like constant conversation, constant planning, constant intentionality. You know, and if there's a takeaway that I want people to have from this particular episode, it's like, dude, just focus on the infrastructure, focus on that, get that solid, make sure the people in there are super solid, because then no idea is going to come into fruition if you don't have that.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap up, Obi. As always, the words of wisdom from Mr. Hernandez. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Kickstarter is still live as this episode comes out. So go take a look at Kickstarter.com for the inevitables. And if you want to find more information about Concentric Circles, that is at concentriccircles.cc. So you guys have an evening. Have a fun evening.
Maybe.
Perhaps. Yeah, real quick, shout out Matt Frodsham, shout out Devin.
Yeah.
You know, as we talked about this tonight, like they were huge pieces to kind of making this thing happen. So really, again, in terms of like being grateful, super grateful for those dudes. Grateful for Liana. You know, Jaslyn's working on some stuff right now too. It's just grateful for everybody involved, man. But huge shout out Matt Frodsham for making Jono cry.
Yeah.
We don't even use the video. It's just like, no, we got Jono. All right, let's delete it.
It was the whiskey, though, right? That's what made you teary-eyed.
Well, it was all the bourbon before the whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. Have a great night, guys.
Yeah, man.
See?
I recall we were hitting all the high notes, singing loud out of the windows, sounding like sirens, going out like lions, a match to gas, and then a blast.